Come in, come in. Oh, great, nice to see you. I've just been pouring myself this little drop of Lagavulin. Have a seat. Have a drop yourself. Come and sit down. Put that down there. Present from a friend, that, an Irish musician. So can't give a man a nobler present, really. Very lovely to see you again. Slant Chevar, as the Gaels say. So, I've got, as you will see, I've got one of my, what I think of as my Tolkien pipes out. I first started smoking church wardens because I'd seen the beautiful, it was long before the films, John Howe and Alan Lee illustrations to Tolkien, and I saw them smoking pipes like this, so I wanted one too. Anyway, I thought we'd have another dip into Tolkien, and I realised this is the Return of the King in that beautiful HarperCollins edition with the maps and the illustrations by Alan Lee. I've taken the paper cover off it. I actually really like the deep red book, partly because, of course, the story is referred to within itself as the Red Book. But I realise I don't think I've ever read you anything from the final volume, which is so heroic and magnificent. And I realise I've generally tended to read you. We've been in my study and, you know, we've read the little passages about pipe smoking and the moments of peace, moments in Rivendell or Lothlorien or the Shire itself. But I thought I'd read you one of the great heroic moments from the Siege of Gondor and the riding of the Rohirrim. Tolkien's whole account of the Rohirrim and the way he writes their poetry and the character of Theoden the king, indeed the very name of the hall, the kind of names of the other Rohirrim riders, are all drawn from Anglo-Saxon. And I've been on a bit of a Anglo-Saxon or early English pilgrimage myself recently. I walked in Dorset, but what was the old kingdom of, as Anglo-Saxon kingdom of Wessex, from Wareham, where the young Anglo-Saxon king, or near where the young Anglo-Saxon king was martyred, Edward, king and martyr, up to Shrewsbury Abbey, founded by Alfred the Great, where his body was interred finally. And I just thought, oh, well, let's read Tolkien's reimagining of that whole ethos. So I'm going to read you the very last part of the chapter called The Siege of Gondor, which is an absolutely dire moment where it looks like Gondor itself will fall and the Lord of the Nazgul has come to the gate and only Gandalf is there to defy him. And Gandalf waits at the gate. "You cannot enter here," said Gandalf, and the huge shadow halted. "Go back to the abyss prepared for you. Go back. Fall into the nothingness that awaits you and your master. Go." The Black Rider flung back his hood, and behold, he had a kingly crown, and yet upon no head visible was it set. The red fires shone between it, and the mantled shoulders vast and dark. From a mouth unseen there came a deadly laughter. "Old fool," he said, "old fool, this is my hour. Do you not know death when you see it? Die now and curse in vain." And with that he lifted high his sword, and flames ran down the blade. Dire moment. Gandalf did not move. And in that very moment, Away behind, in some courtyard of the city, a cock crowed. Shrill and clear he crowed, recking nothing of wizardry or war, welcoming only the morning that in the sky, far above the shadow of death, was coming with the dawn. And as if in answer, there came from far away another note. Horns, horns, horns. In dark Mindoluin's sides they dimly echoed, great horns of the north, wildly blowing. Rohan had come at last. Wonderful. And of course the dawn is coming sooner than the Nazgûls think. So now the narrative immediately switches back to the story of how the Rohirrim rode to this final battle. And of course we see it partly through the eyes of Merry, who is riding on the same horse as a mysterious warrior called Durnhelm, of course, turns out to be Éowyn. And the time comes when they're going to get ready to charge into the battle. And there's a wonderful passage where the Theoden, the Lord of the Rohirrim, kind of charges the men, as it were, tells them that they must ride. So suddenly they themselves hear or feel this change in the wind, and they're coming just before dawn towards the city. Merry too feels a great weight of horror and doubt. His heart beats slowly, time seemed poison and uncertainty. And he sees the king's head bowed, and he wonders if the king is going to slink away. So we're at a great moment of tension. And then the prose lifts into this glorious passage. Then suddenly, Merry, I should have some tobacco to go with, so I'm going to relight this pipe. These lovely long old-fashioned matches. Then suddenly Merry felt it at last. Beyond doubt, a change. Wind was in his face. Light was glimmering. Far, far away in the south the clouds could be dimly seen as remote grey shapes rolling up, drifting morning lay beyond them. And in that same moment there was a flash, as if lightning had sprung from the earth beneath the city. Of course, that's Gandalf, defying the Lord of the Nazgûl. For a searing second it stood dazzling, far off in black and white, its topmost power like a tower, like a glittering needle. And then as the darkness closed again, there came the rolling over the field, the great boom, as the drums of Mordor's host. At that sound, the bent shape of the king sprang suddenly erect. Tall and proud he seemed again, and rising in his stirrups, he cried in a loud voice, more clear than any had ever heard mortal man achieve before. Arise, arise, riders of Theoden! Fell deeds awake, fire and slaughter. Spear shall be shaken, shield be splintered. A sword day, a red day, ere the sun rises. Ride now, ride now, ride to Gondor. With that he seized a great horn from Guthlaf, his banner-bearer, and he blew such a blast upon it that it burst asunder. And straightway all the horns of the host were lifted up in music, and the blowing of the horns of Rohan in that hour was like a storm upon the plain and a thunder in the mountains. Ride now, ride now, ride to Gondor. Suddenly the king cried to Snowmane, and the horse sprang away. Behind him his banner blew in the wind, white horse upon a green field, but he outpaced it. After him thundered the knights of his house, but he was ever before them. Éomer rode there, the white horse-tail on his helm floating in his speed, and in the front of the first Éorad roared like a breaker and a foaming to the shore, but Theoden could not be overtaken. Fey he seemed, or the battle fury of his fathers ran like new fire in his veins, And he was borne up on Snowmane like a god of old, even as Arome the Great in the battle of the Valar when the world was young. His golden shield was uncovered, and lo, it shone like an image of the sun, and the grass flamed into green about the white feet of his steed. For morning came, morning and a wind from the sea, and darkness was removed, and the hosts of Mordor wailed, and terror took them, and they fled and died, and the hoofs of wrath rode over them. Then all the host of Rohan burst into song, and they sang as they slew, for the joy of battle was on them, and the sound of their singing, that was fair and terrible, came even to the city. Absolutely fabulous writing. And the arise, arise, riders of Theoden. Fell deeds await fire. You can see that's written in verse. And if you were to analyse the verse, you would find it is exactly the alliterative metre of the great Anglo-Saxon epics. And then comes the Battle of the Pennonal Fields, and there's one of the great images that Alan leaded with the white horse on the green field. And of course it's an allusion to the white horses that you can still see, ancient things carved in chalk on the green fields and the downs of Wessex and Sussex. They're just astonishing and beautiful and moving things. I've seen them, and we were walking along some of these downs and up past the really old Iron Age hill forts, and the whole landscape was so much the landscape of the Rohirrim. I felt as we were walking over those 3 days. So I thought it'd be nice to read something triumphant, because we tend to sit in a comfortable study and read about comfortable things. But here we have people risking their lives. We have the great epics of war. And it's good, even in the comfort, to think about final heroism, about heroism against impossible odds, about thrusting back the darkness even when the darkness seems to be winning, and about trusting, as it were, to the sun rising and to the dawn and to all that means, both physically and literally, but also spiritually and symbolically. And ultimately, of course, it's an image, as Tolkien, as a good Catholic Christian well knew, it's an image of resurrection and the final triumph. So I thought we should just enjoy a little bit of the heroic and epic part of The Lord of the Rings. Anyway, thanks for dropping round, and we'll dip into The Lord of the Rings again, I'm sure, soon. So lovely to see you.